Frustration is what's fueled talk of drastic measures. In the wake of high-profile cases like the stabbing of Irina Zarutska on the light rail, some have suggested the National Guard could be used to curb violent crime in Charlotte. Last week, when the vice president was here, he said the Trump administration would be willing if asked. The use of the Guard came up after today's hearing.
Regardless of what you may think about the president's use of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., what is inarguable, what the mayor has agreed with, is that it has made Washington, D.C. safer. So that is proof of concept.
Now, no one in Charlotte City leadership is asking for federal troops, but as mentioned, they have been sent to Washington, D.C., and they're on their way to Memphis and perhaps New Orleans and now Portland. There are legal questions about whether crime is a justification to bring soldiers in.
I don't see any reason. The military, when it acts domestically, has historically only been used when civilian authorities are overwhelmed by some sudden emergency. Crime may be a problem. It is a problem in a number of American cities. But it's not an emergency. It's not come out of nowhere.
Joseph Nunn is with the Brennan Center for Justice. He focuses on policies that allow the president to respond to emergencies without sacrificing constitutional rights and the separation of powers. I asked him if there was a precedent for what we're seeing.
No. To be sure, the United States military has a historical role in being deployed domestically to respond to civil unrest. But one of the key words there is civil unrest. Instead, what we are seeing is the insertion of the United States Armed Forces into what is fundamentally routine law enforcement in a way that has no real precedent in American history.
You mentioned the Guard can be called in for civil unrest. Is there gray area in how that is defined?
Yes, the law here is across the board pretty fuzzy, and it's often poorly drafted, and much of the law is also quite old. And part of the reason we are seeing so much litigation, such as in California, and then Oregon has just filed a lawsuit as well, is there are a lot of unanswered questions in the law as to the exact scope of the president's authority. And part of the reason those questions are unanswered is because past presidents have not used the military in this way.
What about when they use an argument that there's a national interest at play here? We're protecting, national buildings, those kinds of things. Does that open this up then to the allocation of bringing these troops in?
This idea that there is an inherent presidential power to protect federal property and functions is an old one, but it's a theory that originates with the executive branch, not with the courts and not with Congress. And it has also historically been quite narrow. And the argument that the Trump administration is putting forward has blown it all out of proportion. And nothing in the Constitution expressly authorizes the president to use the military for law enforcement under any circumstances, and no statute mentions this protective power.
If they don't, what do you see as the danger?
Civilian government is the responsibility of civilian authorities. What this administration is doing in claiming the authority to use the military to support routine law enforcement anywhere, at any time, for essentially any reason, the last person who claimed that sort of authority was King George. And we are headed down a potentially very dangerous path with the normalization of the use of troops in American cities, on American streets. There's a Pandora's box concern here, that once these norms are broken, they will be very hard to rebuild. And one should not lose sight of the fact that an army turned inward is a dangerous thing. That's something the founders understood largely based on their own experience at the hands of the British military in the years before and during the American Revolution.